All right, it is 6:01 p.m. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to remind everybody in the chambers, please silence your cell phones. For those that are attending via Zoom, we'd ask that you please keep your lines muted unless you are called on to speak for something on the agenda or during public comment. So everyone should be muted online, and those of us here in the chambers have our phones on silent. All right, everybody ready? The Common Council of the City of Glendale is now in session. Everybody, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Kennedy,
Here.
Alderwoman Vukovich,
Here.
Alderman Doherty,
Here.
Alderman Gelhardt,
Here.
Alderman Weezy,
Here.
Alderman Schmelzling,
Here.
Alderwoman Shaw.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is public comment. Glendale residents, business owners, and property owners are invited to speak to the council on items that are not on tonight's agenda, but are within the city's ability to regulate or control. Is there anyone wishing to address the mayor and council on a non-agenda item? I don't see anyone in the council chambers wishing to be recognized. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to a non-agenda item who's viewing us on the Zoom? If so, you may unmute and state your name and address. All right, no one wishing to speak in public comment. We will move on then. The consent agenda includes two items: adoption of minutes of our meeting held on March 28th and approval of monthly reports. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Second.
Moved by Alderman Vukovich, seconded by Alderman Doherty. Any discussion? Without objection, the consent agenda is approved. Move on. We have a lengthy list of new business items, and we're going to start tonight with a presentation of a feasibility study of two potential Glendale library sites. I'll turn it over to Mr. Hoffland to introduce our consultant.
Thank you, Mayor.
Your microphone's not on.
Thank you, Mayor. We're receiving a presentation tonight from Keeney Architects. The assignment and the contract was for the review of the two sites that have been identified, one on Green Bay Avenue and one on Jean Nicolet Road. There is a PowerPoint presentation to make sure that those that are not in attendance will be able to see the information to be shared. Thank you.
Good evening, and as you go to speak, you should pull the microphone close to you, make sure it's kind of aimed toward your mouth. And if you make sure the mute button is not on, because otherwise people on the Zoom won't be able to hear you. So if you want to just say testing or something in the microphone.
Test 1, 2.
Perfect. Yeah, the little red light comes on right here, and that means that you're live and they can hear you on the Zoom. So thank you. Good evening.
Great. Good evening. Thank you for having me, John from CUNY Architects. Tonight's a high-level review of what we've been doing the last couple of months, just to give you up to speed and then field any questions, kind of go through the packet that we have and just make sure we're getting you the information that you expect and you hear what we have to date. The main first page here, the main two properties that we're looking at are 7101 Green Bay Avenue and 6373 Jean Nicolet Road. Pretty much high level on these two properties. Square footage wise, they're very close in square footage. Green Bay Avenue being 19,000 square feet, the Jean Nicolet being right at about 18,000 square feet. Both properties are 3-level facilities with one of the each facility having a lower level below grade, but do have exposed windows. So as we went through the report, we kind of, you'll see entities that can be in a lower level. We've populated potentially in a lower level. Property number one, the 7101 Green Bay Avenue. Right now, there is no data that we have collected as of what the taxes are, things like that, but we will be populating that so we can have a comparison of what the current property value and taxes are. That property currently is being renovated by the current owner. If you've been by lately, you'll see quite a bit of activity that's been going on, not only exterior, but also interior. Later on in the presentation, I'll state the pros and cons of that, but really the work that would be important to us is the exterior work that's being done. Both facilities would be, if it would be turned into a library, pretty much would be 100% renovated inside the facility. Slide number 2, A105. This is starting with the Green Bay Avenue. The images you're seeing on the right-hand side are the existing floor plans. As stated earlier, lower level, first floor, second floor. The middle column you're seeing with the different colors, that's high level, what we've populated, what would go in the facility as a library entity and where they potentially could go. None of this information has been reviewed by any staff or library committee, and so it's just high level at this point, so we can kind of determine how much square footage would fit in each facility based on their needs. The major piece on the left, which is what we're calling the structural review, both of these facilities are constructed at the same materials, wood frame with steel bar joist flooring and beam supports and columns. In both cases, the structural steel would have to be changed and modified to take the floor loading of a library or where we do the collections. So really puts them both on the same playing field. Neither one has any advantage over the other when it comes to structural. The facility I'll take on Green Bay Avenue, I'll break it into the north half and south half. Structurally, that's how the two different column or joist bays are occurring for the floor loading. Each one of those joist bearing would be divided into 3 pieces. And primarily this would be done only with the heavy collection areas would want to go from day one or in the future. Next slide, please. A105.1. This is just some imagery. If you haven't been to the facility, you can kind of see it's a masonry building. It's in fairly good shape with the masonry. A lot of the exterior issues that were photographed actually when we originally went through the building, the south retaining wall have been corrected and updated. Today or yesterday started the whole paving of the parking lot. So like I said, the owner has put quite a bit of investment in the exterior. The interior, even though they've done remodeling, it would be our recommendation, pretty much the majority of that would be removed to revamp for the library aesthetics and requirements of the library facility. Electrically, it's got an older switchgear electrical, but regardless in a remodel, that would be updated. This current facility does not have a sprinkler system, which is one of the things the other facility has that this facility does not. Code-wise would require that in a new renovation remodel. A106. Now we're at the second facility, same thing on the right. Everything was, as I mentioned earlier, has been analyzed to kind of be apples for apples, the amount of square footage that we could fit in each facility. So not one doesn't have an advantage over the other based on what the pieces can fit into it. This facility is a newer facility. So a lot of the exterior skin of the facility would meet current R values when it was built, but still would be analyzed when if it would deem to go to change over to a library. Structurally, as mentioned, this facility still would need all the structural improvements done to the floor of any areas where the collection would go. Imagery A 106.1. You can see, obviously, this is a newer building, as you know. Upper right slide just shows that it has a current fire suppression system. Bottom right, newer electrical distribution. Some of the larger open areas are structurally designed or ready to be open areas. That might be a thing that would be taken advantage of. It would be turned into a library. There is some movement on the market. I talked to the realtor as of late, so there is some movement with this facility potentially under a lease piece. High level on a cost per square foot, we really see both facilities primarily taking the same cost per square foot for a renovation. Something like this, we'd see anywhere from $159 a square foot up to $200 a square foot for renovation for a library. That would not include any cost to purchase the property. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions?
So how much would reinforcing the floors cost in each facility approximately? You said they would have to be reinforced to hold library books. What would that cost?
And that breaks down to about $12 a square foot for the structural reinforcing of each facility.
12,000 square feet of the floors
$12
that
a
would-
square foot, correct? So if
Not
there's-
for the entire building, but of the floors. And so if you had one floor that needed reinforced, it would be 12,000 or
correct.
$12 per square foot of
Yep.
that floor.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So whatever floors we place the collections, whether that's obviously the lower levels on concrete slab on grade, that wouldn't need any structural. But if we go on the first floor would be that $12 a square foot. And then those penetrating columns would go through the basement and have footings. And they're again populating the second floor if we deem that area too. Yep.
Other questions from? Alderman Schmelzing, you're online. Did you have any questions?
No specific questions. So I just, could we just have perhaps in summary, the price per square footage as you indicated again?
Yeah, so you're right around $158 a square foot to $200 a square foot for renovation. That includes the $12 a square foot for the structural, and that includes structurally doing both floors. So when we looked at it, we do all floors primarily because what we've seen is over the years, if a library would go into the facility and you want to move collections around, the last thing you'd want to do is be limited or have to go in there and do another major renovation to get the structural piece in there.
So what's the square footage of each of the two buildings again, the total square footage?
Yeah, Green Bay Avenue is 19,000 square feet.
So 3.8 million
And
if
then
on the upper end, right?
And then the Gina Glaze is 18,000 square feet.
So 3.6 million on the upper end.
Yeah.
If you want it, okay.
Now, those would balance out based on how much of the renovation you would do. Like I said, this is populating 100% of the facility for a library. As we sit here today, I don't know if that's the requirement. We've used a prior facility that we worked on with a similar community size to say you would need that square footage.
So based on the library committee that did a study and gave us a recommendation last year, they were recommending 24,000 to 25,000 square feet just for the city of Glendale to have a library. Currently, our library is about 15,800, 15,900 square feet. So just under 16,000, but that's 4 communities. Those 4 communities should have a significantly larger library than they currently do. So anyway, either one of these 17 or 18,000 square feet, 18 or 19,000 square feet are still, we would have to use every single square inch of the building in order to be able to meet the needs. And even then we would probably fall short of what our recommendations by professionals.
And the one thing I'd want to point out too, the Green Bay Avenue is a 1.44 acre site and the other's just short of 1 acre site. So one site is larger than the other. Interesting enough, the Jean Nicolay site has currently the parking lot is got 54 parking stalls where the other has 51. But the Green Bay Avenue site is larger footprint wise of the site.
Okay, and has a larger lot that could be configured to probably accommodate more cars than it currently is.
Correct, yep.
Okay. And any other questions from members of the council? Yes, Mr. Hoffland.
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to adding up the per square foot renovation price along with the potential acquisition, again, purely a best guess scenario, the Green Bay Avenue combined cost would be roughly 5.25, 5.3 million. The Jean Nicolay is approximately 6.6 million.
And we've been told by professionals, probably in the neighborhood of about $1.5 million to build a collection, because we'd be starting from scratch. And then probably another $1 million in terms of furniture and bookshelves and all of that stuff. So we basically add another 2.5 million on there in order to be able to equip it with everything it would need inside, from computers to furniture to bookshelves, plus all the collections.
One follow-up question.
Yeah, Alderman Schmelzen, go ahead.
Those estimates, the 5.35 and the 6.6, that's based off of the high end, the 200.
Yes.
Did you guys hear my question? I'm sorry.
We did. You froze, but we heard your question, and Daryl did respond with a yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then one follow-up question. It seemed like the Jean Nicolay location might not need full renovation unless we wanted to make it all structurally sound, correct? Because it has some open space. Is that potentially an option?
That's not true. What we did is that if you look at the images, right in the beginning, the front, the larger white or yellow sections of the image is showing kind of a 2-story or maybe even a 3-story open. So the library has an inviting feel when you come in, that it actually helps get light in the lower level and the upper. So that concept is shared by both facilities.
Okay, so either way, they would need to have that done. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from members of the council? All right, so tonight, this was on here for informational purposes only. As of right now, we are currently in an agreement with the other 3 North Shore communities. And if fundraising is successful by June 30th, we would remain a part of the North Shore Library. The library they're already clearing the ground, and we'll be breaking ground here pretty soon on the building that would house the new North Shore Library. And so by the end of 2023, the North Shore Library would move from its Glendale location to the Bayside location, one exit up the freeway. But this is the purpose of today's study was for us to have information. Once we get to June 30th, then we now have data. If we have to go before our residents and ask them to approve a referendum, because we are not in a position right now to spend somewhere between $7 and $9, possibly $10 million to buy, renovate, and fully stock a brand new library without having the voters approve it. We'd be looking at having that potentially on the November ballot. And then we'd also have to have a separate referendum in order to be able to pay to operate a library. We currently spend just under $500,000 a year as our contribution to the North Shore Library. That's roughly half of the North Shore Library's cost for our operations. If we were to operate our own library, we'd be looking at doubling that cost, probably close to $1 million. And we would have to ask voters to agree to a permanent increase in their taxes in order to be able to accommodate that. Those are all numbers that we would look at come this summer. But today was basically just for purposes of giving us information about the feasibility of these 2 locations. Both of these locations appear to be locations we could utilize for a library if we find ourselves in a position this summer that we have to move forward with a Glendale library, because for whatever reason, the Bayside location with the North Shore Library falls through. I want to thank you for your study and for this information. This is really helpful for us. I'm happy to know that we have these 2 locations. I think the thing we'd probably be wanting to look at this summer is which one could we do? Which one would be less expensive? And it sounds like we got that answer today as well. So thank you very much.
And if items come up that you want to make sure that are in the final report and study, please pass those on to Daryl and then we can address those.
Yeah, certainly.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
So no other questions from members of the council? All right, we will move on then. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, next is discussion and possible action on North Jean Nicolay Road Lighting Project. Mr. Emick?
Yes, this was a. Oh, hello. All right. Back to the attention of the city through WISDOT, letting us know that when the project starts on Jean Nicolay, which will be in 23 and 24, that when the sound wall is built, that there will be no lighting on the road. So currently, Jean Nicolay, there is no street lighting at all north of Bender Road. And any lighting that is afforded to the road right now is from the freeway spillover. So also part of the freeway project is any lighting that is on the outside of the road will go to the median. Therefore, with a 14 to roughly 23-foot high sound wall from Fairfield to Daphne, it'll be pretty dark. So I was asked by Steve Hoff, the project manager, if we were interested in it. So I said, let's bring it to council. There's two options that I put forth. Standard lighting, which is Cobra lighting, which is actually planned to go on the Port Road side, north of the railroad bridge to Daphne. And that's what we currently have on Port Road, Daphne North. Anyway, we also have it on Port Road from Hampton South to Home Depot. The other option is decorative lighting, and that would be like Guardco, which we have on Green Bay, we have on Bender, we have on the industrial area south of Hampton, or potentially the Holophane, which is also the decorative lighting on Silver Spring and Port Road. Again, availability on those items are pretty far out. We're still waiting on our lighting from the Silver Spring HISA project from this summer. So we're still a ways out. So anyway, I brought this forth because of that. So that's basically the essence of the ask is looking at lighting on Jean Nicolay.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Are there any questions for Charlie? All right, so the requested motion here is to approve the installation of standard lighting along North Jean Nicolay Road from West Fairfield Court to West Daphne Road. An amount right now of not to exceed $150,000. And I guess we would have you come back to us if it looks like it's going to be more than that.
That's correct. And that again, we would put that in the capital for 2024. That's when we were told that invoice would come into the city. Correct.
Okay, so is there a motion to that effect? Moved by Alderwoman Vukovic.
Second.
Alderwoman Shaw. Alderman Gelhardt, did you want to speak?
Yeah, it sounds like the decorative lighting is what we've gone with in other locations. And I'm wondering why we wouldn't do that here, especially with Nicolay High School being, a site that many people visit. I would think that the decorative lighting might be a better fit for the area with as many visitors.
Yeah, the only area where we have decorative lighting where it's residential would be Bender west of Green Bay. Otherwise, all the decorative lighting is on the main roads. So, I mean, it's possible. I mean, I started for consistency, like I said, on the Port Road side, it's going to be the Cobra lighting. So I figured on the other side, it'd be the same thing. Also for the price. So, I mean, it's certainly up to you all to make the decision. I'm just presenting what I have.
I'm going to ask a question. Is it, as you're going down the road, is it going to be on the side by the sound wall? Or is it going to be on the
That's
side
my
by the
understanding.
sidewalk?
Yes, on the east side of the road, correct.
So basically somehow attached and wired through the sound walls or on that side of the road.
I'm
Okay.
assuming that's the case. As it is actually further down Jean Nicolay, south of Bender, they actually have the lighting on top of the sound wall.
So the state will install this when they're doing the other
That's
work
correct.
and we'll just give the
Yes.
money to the state.
Yeah,
for
so
it.
it's bid through them, so it'll be strictly through DOT. We would just get the bill, 100% Glendale.
Do you have any other questions, John?
No.
Okay, Alderman Doherty.
We don't know what the actual cost will be because inflation, other things is a few years out.
It's
So we're only
Correct.
proving what we believe it would be, there's no bid or there's no firm pricing.
at this time, that's the best snapshot they could give us was the 150 price for the standard lighting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Alderman Weezy.
Just for the record, can you define what the term Cobra lighting, please?
It's like a Cobra. So it's kind of like, that's the standard name. It's along Good Hope Road too. It's the kind of the arch. It's got the lighting head on it and the arm kind of swoops down to the main post for the lighting. So it looks like a Cobra. I think that's why it's got its name, but that's what it looks like.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
How about the decorative lighting? What does that look like?
I'm sorry?
The decorative lighting, what does that look like?
Well, the Guardco is what's on Green Bay, so the black with the round heads. It's on Bender. It's, where else do we have it? We have it on Riverwoods, Esterbrook, Mill Road. And the Hall of Fame would be what's on Silver Spring, what's on Port Road, the maroonish, kind of the trombone looking light. I don't know how to describe it other than that, really. But
Trombone works.
it kind of looks that way, I
As soon as you
guess.
said that, I was like, yeah, that's what it looks like. Yeah. All right, so we have a motion now to direct staff to put in the 2024 capital improvement budget, $150,000 for lighting along North Jean Nicolay Road. Alderman Schmelzing, sorry, go ahead. I didn't see your hand.
No worries. Just curious, what is the bidding process that the state goes through, or I guess the federal, for this fashion when they do this work? Like, how do they come up with the price? I don't know if you know that answer.
I assume it's standard for anything. They put a bid out, and I know with WISTOT, they look for a DBE, so it's a disadvantaged business. So that's their first choice. So if one business presents or a contractor presents himself as that, that's usually their first choice. But it's all bid. It's basically the same process that we go through, just a wider reach, I'm assuming.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Weezy.
Thanks. Charlie, if perchance the board would lean more towards the more decorative lighting, could that be attached to the barrier wall?
I don't know. I'd have to ask with the project manager if it would be standalone or if it would be attached to the wall. The way we have it currently, it wouldn't be. It would have to be independent just based upon the configuration that we have our decorative lighting.
State would go along with that?
They'll go with whatever we want. I mean,
Okay.
we're paying for it. It would just have to be part of the process. And they do need to know. I mean, I did tell them it was have to go to council as early as this meeting tonight. So Steve does have to move along with the process because it is currently moving forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Hey,
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, discussion and possible action on forming a committee to prepare for Glendale's 75th anniversary. That's an item I put on the agenda. In 2000, we celebrated our 50th anniversary as a city. We were chartered in 1950. In 1998, in January of 1998, a committee was formed that spent 2 years planning what was the first Glendale Days. So we had a multi-day carnival. They commissioned a book that was written about the city. Probably many of you have seen the Glendale Past and Future book. So we are, if we're looking at wanting to be ready for things by late 2024, I thought this would be a good time to go ahead and at least have the council form a committee. And I'll come back probably, maybe June or so with some names of people. So give me some time to put things on Nextdoor and other social media and get people who want to be involved. And let that committee then determine throughout this year, what kind of things do they want to do? Do they want to commission an update of the book? What kind of activities do they want to plan? And then they can come back to us by the end of the year with an idea. And that gives us then, some time then to be able to budget for what could be a little bit more expensive than just our Music in the Glen series and our 4th of July if we're going to be celebrating our 75th. So gives us a little bit of time to budget for some festivities in 2025. So I'm asking for this council to, the requested motion from me is that you direct me to form a Glendale 75th anniversary committee and to bring you back at a future meeting, the names of people to staff that committee.
Second.
Moved by Alderwoman Shaw, second by Alderman Doherty. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
hey,
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
I do have a copy of that book.
I have a copy of that book too. All right, next item, discussion and possible action on NOMO May Conservation Initiative. So this was actually brought forward by a member of the community. I forwarded the email that I got to Charlie, and Charlie came back essentially saying, we can't do it citywide this year. There's not enough time to prepare for that. However, there could be some options here. So Charlie, can you tell us about our options?
Yeah, I think the first thing is we're under contract for our grounds maintenance and it goes through this year. So if we talked about future, there could be the option to put that into the bid to allow for not mowing of certain areas, that type of thing. So that would be an option. I think we talked about potentially for this year, it could be just, participation voluntarily. I think we did have some concerns potentially about the city's ordinance. There is an ordinance against grass heights of in excess of 8 inches. So that would be something to consider as well. I think that was just a few of the upfront options that we talked about.
And I agree that we're not in a position citywide to do it this year. We'd want to have time to put things in the newsletter, obviously negotiate, maybe even save us some money if we're not paying for the third party to mow medians and everything in the month of May. I'm just curious, do we even have any properties that we think might get to 8 inches of grass in the month of May? May can still be, we can still get snow in May.
This year, well, I'm looking at, I hate to say it, it really is a 4-letter word, but there is potential again this Sunday, but that's not going to stick. But this year may be exception to the rule, but we have been mowing as early as March in years prior. It just
Really?
depends. Yes, it just depends on season. And I did read an article, I think it was actually in Appleton somewhere, where it got to 18 inches in May. So it wasn't too far from us in Wisconsin that it did get that high. So there is a concern. Obviously, we would do this, we would have to give a short period of time for compliance after, whatever it was, the first week of, if we put that in there June or whatever it would be to get people back into compliance. There may be some issues with that as far as property maintenance enforcement. And then I could think as far as what the city participation would be, if it would be medians would be included, all or just certain park areas we'd let be part participant in the no mow May. I guess that kind of whatever we would be told to do with that.
And I think we're probably open to whatever is your recommendation later this year as you're working on negotiating, what you want to see in a future agreement. Medians might be a little dicier, right? Because you don't want to have any traffic issues with,
That and
lack of
people may,
visibility.
and visitors may not know that Glendale's participating in Omo May, and here we have
Right.
medians that look uncapped. There might be that perception too. So
Right.
that was my concern initially, with at least with medians. I know there are park areas where it wouldn't be a problem. That might be more of a better area to do something like that.
Sure. And for those who are attending the meeting, either here in the council chambers or on the Zoom, No Mow May is an initiative in order to protect the bee population. As you know, bees are in danger, and this is an opportunity for pollinators to be able to do their job in the spring without us repeatedly mowing down the grass and the other plants that they'd be looking to pollinate. So. All right, so the recommendation before us today is to direct city staff to not enforce the mowing requirements this May for any individual properties that wish to participate in this. They would have to have their properties in full compliance by June 7th, and then direct staff to develop a plan for a citywide no mow May implementation in the upcoming years. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Alderman Schmelzling. Is there a second? And then I'll read it again. Motion is to direct city staff to not enforce the mowing requirements in May 2022 for those residents who wish to participate in No Mow May, with all properties in full compliance by June 7th of 2022, and then direct staff to develop a plan for citywide No Mow May implementation in 2023. So is there a second?
And Brian, I think someone did want to talk to this as well, potentially.
No one reached out to me asking to speak. Did someone reach out to you asking to
Yes.
speak?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me the name?
Cheryl, who's I believe on Zoom. Cheryl. Morano.
Oh, okay. So Cheryl, since you reached out to your alderman asking to speak, I'll go ahead and call on you. Go ahead.
Thanks. So I don't have much to say. It sounds like the council is moving forward to make accommodations so that we can do this. I think it's really important. I think it's consistent with the great record that Glendale has on being as green and as environmentally responsible as possible. And I really appreciate your prompt attention to the matter.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. So there's a motion, but there isn't a second at the moment. Is there a second? So this is going to die for lack of a second. Okay, I guess I'm disappointed because, as part of the MMSD commission, these are the kind of things that
Can I
we
move
are
to
doing.
amend?
What?
Can I move to amend the motion?
Right now, you made a motion. It was the recommendation in the
I'll-
memo and it died for lack of a second. If you want to offer a different recommendation, you have the floor.
All right, I think when I looked at the ordinance for this, and I think it's important because frankly, we have struggling environments. I know I had some bees that I had in my lawn just that took shelter underneath my skateboard ramp, and they were pretty benign. But I think one other thing that there might be concerns about, I don't know what other people have commented on in their minds, but is just the unkept nature of the lawns. We could also just strike the enforcement of the grasses that are precluded from being in the natural landscaping. So that means people would just essentially still be held to the other requirements, such as cutting their setback areas and things like that, which would still make it look more kept, but at least would allow the pollinator environment to have a way to get a footing in the spring. So that might be another option, or we could potentially limit it to rear yards. I just think there's something we could be doing, and Appleton has done this. A lot of other communities in the north of the state are starting to do this as well. So I guess I would make the motion that instead of just making it the 8-inch limitation removal, I would say we remove it from the natural landscaping preclusion so that we would still be held to the other setback requirements for mowing.
You'd approve no mow may, but it's still subject to the natural landscaping requirements.
Correct.
Okay, so is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Second by Alderwoman Shaw. Alderman Doherty, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of it. We need to do more on the B side. I guess I'm a little concerned on this one coming up quick. I don't think we've thought about all the other things when you think about whether it's, setback, whether it's not what the city looks like. It seems like we got to try to gear up and be ready. We got time to get ready. I'm sure, but this year seems a little quick to me for not knowing what we're going to do and what potential problems. Charlie's had probably a week longer than we had to look at this, but I mean, I don't think that we're prepared very well.
Okay.
I don't want to have it backfire because we try to do the right thing and we end up causing other problems, which has happened.
Alderwoman Vukovich.
That is my concern. It's not about the actual you being disappointed in us wanting to protect the environment. It's also, we have 2 weeks from May. And residents won't know anybody. I mean, there's not enough time to do what we need to do. That is the only concern I have. Now, if this was to establish this in 2020 or for next year in 2023, it would be, for me, it would have been motion seconded and everything else, but for 2 weeks to try to implement something that is citywide and let residents know, even if it was a few weeks where we could have put it in the newsletter. So it's not the actual idea of the no mow, it's the timing of it where this is the 11th and you're getting ready to start this on the 1st.
Right. And so essentially, to respond then to both you and both Alderman Vukovich and Alderman Doherty, there are probably a couple dozen households that might want to participate this year, and this allows them the opportunity to participate. We're still going to be mowing the medians. We're still going to be doing all the other stuff that we're doing. And now, what Alderman Schmelzing, the motion he made that's now been seconded, does state that it's still subject to the same restrictions that are in the natural landscaping, which means that, if you have a corner lot, you're going to still have to trim the area that would allow drivers to be able to see around the corner and those sorts of things. So, I mean, it's basically just allowing those households that already know about No Mow May, and that as soon as they see something on social media, will say, oh yeah, I'll do that. I'm guessing there's probably a few dozen properties that'll participate this year. It's just allowing them the ability to be able to do that. Alderman Weezy.
Thank you. I don't know about your yards, but mine gets fertilized, and with the gentle showers we've had this April and the heat coming in, the growth coming in May, if I would do that, I would have probably about good foot or more of grass in my yard. The challenge is that if when you get to June, then you start cutting your lawn. You have then hay fields that you will be cutting down. And quite honestly, the way our current recycling program is, they do not allow us to put grass
Oh, hey.
clippings in. So if people in the city would do that, should the city not have some form of recommendation of, hey, what are we going to do with the copious quantities of now freshly cut grass? So it's something else just to factor into to the thought lines.
And that's where, directing staff to come back with a full plan for next year is the motion today is just simply to allow people to be able to, those few that want to do it, like the person that spoke in the meeting a little while ago. There's a few families that want to do it and it allows them to be able to do it. So,
if
yeah,
I
go
may-
ahead, Alderman Schmelzing.
Yeah, I think I look at this as a pilot, so to say. That's how I kind of look at it. And I actually looked into the ordinances because one, it was my constituent, but two, I felt like I had the same question about like the setback, culverts and such. And I think we have a natural landscaping ordinance that's pretty robust. And it's kind of for these reasons so that we can have pollinators and such. This just lets people who frankly don't want to do the work of having a natural landscape all year, lets a lot of those benefits move forward in the month of May when they're mostly beneficial to the environment. Yeah, as far as things like excessive grass, if someone's going to do this, my guess is they care about what they're doing. Maybe that's a bigger concern if we just left it for the full 8-inch requirement removal, but I don't think that's the best idea either, frankly. You can just use that as a mulch. Essentially, you can mulch it or you can set it along with your other plantings, and it creates a nice like wood chip covering that people use otherwise. So there's things you can do with your grass as well.
Any further discussion on the motion? Alderwoman Shaw?
I understand where everyone's coming from, but I've also sympathized with the DPW because I have a constituent who likes to exceed everything possible. And even though in the past she has been directed to cut things down according to the ordinance, it hasn't happened. She had permission and everything. She went to full gamut, but then when the permission was revoked, I sympathize with the DPW trying to reinforce that ordinance. So I understand a lot of that. So take into consideration. And also, I know Alderman Schmelzling was talking about you can use it as other options in your yard, but also for those people who don't keep up the yards, I definitely see an increase in field mice as well. So, and again, I sympathize with the DPW because I do have to look into every issue that comes up.
Alderman Gelhardt?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of this. The unkempt appearance, as Charlie mentioned, along with, as Alderman Weezy indicated, starting in June, when you do cut this, you're going to have these piles of grass everywhere, which, continue with the unkempt appearance. I think if the idea is let's help the bees, I think we could do other things. For instance, allowing people to have beekeeping in Glendale, which hasn't been done. I don't see this as being a big help.
All right, any further discussion? All right, because I suspect this is going to be a split vote and I want to make sure I get the count right, I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Sorry, Madam Clerk.
Clarification beforehand. Unknown is the DPW.
DPW would be enforcing what is currently the natural landscaping rules. So you would still have to make sure that like your setbacks are still cleared, the culverts that allow the water flow, those sorts of things.
Different question.
Yeah, quick.
Yeah.
Before, it is very specific in the natural landscaping ordinance of what grasses can be grown. So that should be also verified too. I think if the people are interested in doing that, I don't think it's just the regular lawn grass or whatever. That is specific to what type. I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but I believe that's my understanding. So it would be, if they're growing it, it has to be in accordance with the natural landscaping types of grasses that are allowed, for clarification, if anybody wondered.
Okay,
I
thank
had a
you.
different question.
Hold on, Steve. Go ahead, Jim.
I meant the city's we're not forcing Charlie to try to come up with anything he'd do different. Correct?
No.
Okay, just want to make sure.
You need to speak into the microphone.
I don't understand that question and answer. Because that's confusing. He,
I didn't know if the DPW was being asked to do anything different in the land they controlled. And the answer is no.
okay,
No. That would, they'd be coming back with a plan for 2023, because right now the land that they are responsible for, most of it is actually maintained by a third party for whom we have a contract, and we are paying for the month of May.
I understand all that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that's what the net
So
upshot
this
was.
is some residential homes, basically. All right.
Yeah, I
Steve,
have one final thing. So I sent around earlier, but apparently didn't get into the council packet. The specific verbiage that is used in the natural landscaping is Eurasian weeds, which doesn't really transcribe in anything other than the Eurasian grass that is essentially Kentucky ryegrass, which is of all things an invasive species from Europe anyways, but we tend to cultivate it and put it over our lawns. So I think we would just allow that to happen with the rest of the natural landscaping in this timeframe. And then it would just be not allowed after May, and then people cut their lawn again. But that's how the ordinance could potentially be updated in the future year as well, if we wanted to put it into a statute.
all right. Any other comments? Okay, we'll call for a vote and it'll be a roll call.
Alderwoman Vukovic. Alderman Doherty.
Yes.
Alderman Gelhardt.
No,
Alderman Weezy.
No.
Alderman Schmelzling.
Yes.
Alderwoman Shaw.
Yes,
Aye. I'll vote with the yeses. So, all right, the motion does pass 4-3. And Charlie, I'll work with you, and I know there's some folks in the community as well that are interested in, trying to assist and help as you work together, put together a plan
Okay.
for the future.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, and I think we can probably find some healthy balance there. I think there are some areas that we're just always gonna need to have to mow. But there may be like some parkland or other places that we could certainly look at to foster a habitat. And John, I like your idea about the beekeeping, if you want to author that for a future meetings. Oh, well, Jim, why don't you turn that draft? Yeah, let's put that in a future meeting. I think that would be helpful. All right, next item, discussion and possible action on the creation of an associate planner position and assignment in the pay grade schedule. Mr. Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. Many of you know that Elias is no longer employed with the city of Glendale. As both the payroll benefit specialist, Jessica, as well as John, the new director of community development, looked at the requirements, the key aspects of the responsibilities, and ultimately came up with the job description, which is attached to the memo. Also, we looked at the pay using external comparables and internal comparables, and made a recommendation regarding placement in the city's current wage classification structure. The recommendation is pay grade 3, which is consistent with how Elias's pay was as an incumbent in that position. As you're aware, the city attempts to hire new employees between the minimum of a pay grade up to step 6. Step 6 is considered the market point or value for the position. Elias's position evolved over time. As some of you are aware, he started out really as sort of an intern, grew into the position, matured, responsibilities of the job grew with him. And that was very helpful for us as we looked at creating this, the job description that's before you tonight for consideration.
Recommendation from the city administrator is the job description and the position placement in pay grade 3 of the salary schedule. Is there a motion to that effect, please? Moved by Alderman Weezy. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Alderman Gelhardt. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, discussion and possible action on the 2021 annual report that was sent out to us. Who did the annual report? The graphics and the putting it together.
Ela was involved.
Kayla? Looks really good.
You
Did I?
did the seasonal positions.
No Momet, associate planner. I have printed off the agenda that was sent out by Daryl. Is there an item that was included since then?
It's been a draft.
Because
Sorry.
I don't have a 4F on mine, so. I mean, I do have a 4F, but it's discussion and possible action. An additional item. Okay. All right, thank you. Review and approval of classification structure and wage scale for seasonal positions. Sorry, Mr. Offland.
Thank you, Mayor. In order to formalize and put some sort of structure or parameters around how the city pays for its seasonal employees, to differentiate between permanent part-time employees, in working with, again, the payroll benefit specialist and discussions with those managers that supervise and are responsible for recruiting and hopefully retaining these seasonal staff members. As you're aware, the market has changed in regards to part-time, including seasonal staffs. As late as this morning, I received an update at management team meeting as it relates to how many applicants have we received for summer type jobs, whether it be laborers, team leaders, both in the public works and parks area. And I think we had only received one interested candidate who wanted to return. So we're in competition out there with other private sector employers. So what I've done is tried to put together again with the payroll benefit specialist, a structured wage scale similar to the wage scale that's in existence for the permanent positions in the city. So between the competitiveness as well as sort of an underlying thought that $15 maybe should be the minimum amount that the city should pay any staff members. Before you is a pay scale that at this time only includes 4 different positions: the chief election inspector, seasonal labor team lead, again, seasonal labor, whether it be public works or in the parks or at concessions, and then the election inspectors. Again, those lowest positions are $15 an hour. So the recommendation before you is to approve the classification structure and the wage scale for the seasonal positions.
Thank you. Daryl, on the printout I have, we're showing on the background analysis, 3rd bullet point, public works seasonal at 13. Is that an error?
Those are current.
Oh, I'm sorry, those are the current. I apologize.
Recommendations on the next page, yeah. Actually, it's on the attachment, that if you link there, yep. So yeah, the minimum wage for any position would be election inspectors, and summer seasonal would be $15, and all other positions will be above that. Okay, is there a motion then to adopt the recommendation of the city administrator? Moved by Alderwoman Vukovich, second by Alderman Gelhardt. Any further discussion? Alderwoman Shaw.
Just out of curiosity, what are the current salaries of these positions? Anything?
Yeah, that was in the memo.
Well, part of it is I had the same agenda you did, so I was just going off of that.
Yeah, sure. Chair.
Currently, they're for between $12.36 an hour, 13, 15.45.
I'm just kind of curious, election people, I admire them. Do they, I'm, everyone I've met is for the love of the job, more so than anything. So I just want, if you can explain better to me.
Alderwoman Vukovich. In your microphone,
is-
please. Microphone.
That is a privileged answer. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go into, it's not a love of a job. People do need that money. It's a 16-hour day, and I know people who work part-time, who pick up extra hours, get stuff, and they work that just to get extra money for their family and not just because of the love of it. So as they're working, I don't, I prefer to pay people for the job that they do, not because they should enjoy it or not enjoy it. Someone said that about the school board, and I get $600 a year for school, but you should enjoy. No, I might need that $45 a month for gas, So it's just, it's not for us to decide who or what should be, if they want the job or not. I just think it should always be paid fairly.
I understand that. It's obviously, I've only lived in two places my entire life, so I've had a very narrow.
That's why I'm here,
discussion, so
Joanne. That's why I'm here. It's okay.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the increase in the salaries as recommended by the city administrator, please say aye.
Aye.
Those no. Motion carries. Next is item 4G, discussion and possible action on the 2021 annual report, which was sent out to us, and it looks very good. So we'll make sure we tell Kayla, thank you. It looks great. And so any discussion on any comments or questions on the annual report?
I just like the picture of the Glendale sign.
Taken at a GABA event, actually, so.
Yeah, I just want to also compliment the work. I know I refer to this a bunch of times when people ask me questions that I should know off the top of my head. So it's a great reference to have for the city.
Okay, so is there a motion then to approve the 2021 annual report?
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Doherty, seconded by Alderman Schmelzling. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next is an update on a complaint by Dawn Earl, 2450 West Good Hope Road. And I believe this was submitted by the city administrator and the city attorney. So I don't know who's going to speak to it.
Good evening. The city has an ordinance titled the Fair Housing Ordinance, and what it does is it creates a structure whereby anyone who believes that they've been discriminated against in the rental, purchase, or lease of property, or discriminated against in the failure to provide an accommodation associated therewith, can petition the city council and ask that they appoint a duly authorized representative. And that's exactly what we have in this particular case. The complainant has alleged that some decisions have been made by a condo association and another resident of the condo association that relate to the ordinance. So we're not any further than the stage where the council is being asked to appoint someone to take a look at it. And under the ordinance, a couple of things can happen. The duly authorized representative can essentially offer to act as a mediator by reaching out to the parties and see if a reasonable resolution can be reached. And if that's not the case, if it can't be reached, then any appropriate referrals are made to the applicable state or federal agency that might be applicable to the specific complaint. So that's all the further we are right now. I think it's also important to know that the ordinance does not appoint the duly authorized representative to act as an attorney or argue on behalf of one side or the other. It essentially gives them the opportunity to investigate, see if there's anything there, and then offer to mediate the matter between the parties. So we would not be representing anyone in court or filing any pleadings on behalf of any complainant in front of any state or federal agency. But this is the preliminary step to see whether or not there can be a reasonable resolution through essentially mediation.
In our past practice has been to appoint the city attorney as a duly authorized representative when there have been complaints of this nature. Okay, so the recommendation before us today is to appoint the city attorney, Nathan Baer, to serve as the duly authorized representative of the city of Glendale for the purpose of resolving a fair housing complaint that's been raised. So can we have a motion to move by Alderwoman Shaw? Is there a second? Second by Alderman Weezy. Okay, is there any discussion or any questions? I know we've got an attorney up here. We've got, I saw, actually, the attorney didn't raise his hand first, so Alderman Vukovich did.
I don't know how this works, but there is, you don't have to be attorney to do this, correct? And this is to do, I'm not quite understanding, what would you be doing?
Well, under the ordinance, it indicates that the duly authorized representative is to reach out to the parties, learn more about what the complaint is, and see if there's a way that it can be resolved amicably between all of the parties, whether the accommodation can be made, whether something can be changed or a practice can be changed or a decision that's been made can be changed or altered. And if the parties say, we're not interested in that, we're not going to agree to that. We're not going to make an accommodation, or we don't believe an accommodation is necessary, whatever it might be, then we would provide information on the appropriate state or federal agency to follow up on the complaint and make the appropriate referral.
The complaint wouldn't become individual, it would actually be coming from the city of Glendale who would resolve the fair house.
Right, and well, it's not a foregone conclusion. I don't know any more than what's in the packet at this point, really.
Of this particular case.
Right, exactly. I mean, it might be that, the law doesn't dictate that outcome, but if it does, we'd certainly make the appropriate referral.
Go ahead, Alderman Vukovich.
The only reason I'm asking,
In the
no
microphone.
no offense to you, but before John Fuchs was kind of on retainer, this is an hourly lawyer. So I'm just wondering if anybody else could do it, because we pay him by the hour. If,
We'd be paying anybody else by the hour because I don't know that any of
but it
us
could,
are
like,
qualified to do the
well, what I'm
investigation.
talking about in like the city administrator, or I'm just asking, and it's, if you don't have to be a lawyer and it's not a lawyer and it's just facts gathering. And
I mean, I could
putting a
certainly-
report together.
Sure.
No offense to
Sure,
you, but I just want to
understand.
know.
No, I completely understand. I mean, I could certainly assist staff with that if you wanted to make a different appointment.
Oh, no, I'm just
Yeah, I
asking
mean,
the
certainly,
question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very reasonable question. We could do that, but I mean, at the end of the day, I'll have to assist who's ever working with that as to whether or not a formal complaint would result out of, or referral to a state or federal agency. And, I think that's probably why cut out, the middleman, so to speak, and probably for sake of expediency and to make it a little more streamlined, I think that was probably the thought.
And I understand that. I just wanted to understand that part of it.
These happened infrequently. I've been mayor for 7 years. This is the first time I've seen it happen. You've been on the council 15 years. You've been on the council 16 years. Have you had a fair housing complaint the time either of you have been on the council? No. Okay. So I get what you're saying. I don't know that any, the city attorney probably knows better than any of our staff how to handle something that hasn't come up in 16 years. So, yeah. Alderman Gelhard.
I just, I don't know very much about the facts either. It struck me that, could this be a public accommodation case in your, review of the facts?
I'd hate to draw any conclusions without having dug into really talking to many people involved in it yet. Because if I make a preliminary guess and I'm wrong, but at this stage, there was an email that came in, and at this point, I've just assisted staff with responding appropriately to indicate that this is the process under the ordinance. This is what will happen, and referring the complaint to the council, which has brought us here. So I don't know the answer to that yet. Maybe.
All right, so we do have a motion in a second. Alderman Weezy, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. One thing I would like to see if we could add to that motion, however, is that even in the event that this type of complaint would come in, this property is within the 4th district. First time I've heard of it. So would it not be advisable to have the elected body or the elected official in the area at least be advised that, hey, this is brewing in your district, just as an FYI.
Sure. When did the complaint come in?
Sweet.
Last week, right before the agenda, right?
Exactly,
'Cause this
right.
is added late. Okay,
Just for future reference.
sure. Okay. So right now there is a motion then to approve appointing the city attorney Nathan Bayer as the duly authorized representative of the city, subject to section 15.3.5 to receive and attempt to resolve a fair housing complaint that has been submitted. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of appointing the city attorney to handle the fair housing complaint, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, item 4J, discussion and possible action on contract addendum number 1, installation, abandonment of vapor points and site maintenance at Bender Road landfill. Hello, you're back.
I'm back. With me tonight is Heidi Wolfel. She is the program project manager with GZA, the city's environmental consultant. So if there are any questions that came up in regard to that, Heidi was here to help answer any of those.
All right, go ahead.
All right, all right. Yes, this is a request for installation of vent pipes at the park for remediation of methane gas. One of the vent pipes, VP7, that we reference in this memo tonight, was never replaced as part of the installation of the Bender Road project. Can't find any record of what happened to it, why it wasn't, or anything after extensive search. We did find through testing that's semi-annual out at the park that there were elevated methane levels in a certain area. So the recommendation of GZA actually through the DNR is that we reinstall, at least for sure, VP7 and an additional vapor point, as well as investigate some of the other vapor points that are out there that may or may not have been disconnected and go that route. So that is pretty much the ask.
Okay. Any questions? Alderman Weezy.
Thank you. Charlie, you said this VP7, which was supposed to have been installed, cannot be found.
It was originally installed before the installation of the road itself and was not reinstalled as part of that project.
All right, would there be any potential of a back charge to that contractor, because it should have been done if it was an oversight on their part or omission of some form? Could we not back charge them?
We couldn't find any record of it being directed, not directed. We just know it was there and it's not. And now, unfortunately, we have correlation with potential for high levels out there. So our recommendation is to install it as well as the other one and what's being requested.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Couple little ones.
Yep, go ahead, Alderman Schmelzling.
I guess I dug into the contract a little bit. It seems like this would be approximately 15,000 at T&M. How is that kind of monitored just to make sure it doesn't go beyond that? I know a lot of times when you're digging around on a landfill, you never know what you're going to run into. Just trying to get a little perspective of where the estimate came from.
So I've reached out to a number of subcontractors to get the pricing to reinstall that point. I've reached out to 3 different locations or 3 different vendors. One of them is no longer in business to do this stuff. The other one was rather elevated. And so the winning bid is from landfill drilling out of Sun Prairie. They do this type of work quite frequently. And so they're familiar with vent pipes and the venting system and the trench that goes around on Bender Road there. So they're familiar with it. Their cost is, is based on having to stop traffic and put barriers up because it is a narrow work area there in that right of way. So that is a consideration of theirs for their safety and the safety of the traffic out there.
Okay. So I'm glad to hear it did get through at least a couple of vendors. And just one follow-up question, and it's a little more macro in nature. I know we're venting methane from the landfill. Is there any reason why this wasn't, I hear of a better environmental approaches to like route that and then burn it off so it doesn't just become methane that's venting. I'm sure that's a lot more than $15,000. Just curious why we're in this situation to something little bit more environmentally friendly.
I think right now it'd be a little bit late to do any venting. It's a mature landfill, so most of the gas before all the field work was done out there would have been released in some point along that trench that was out there. Since they've redone the fields out there, you know, you're moving cells, you're moving materials from one location to another. It kind of regenerizes some of the materials, so it gets into contact with groundwater or microbes or whatever to help release additional methane. I don't think it's worth the infrastructure or the cost to put in a venting system at this point because you're not going to get a good return on it.
Okay, thank you. Just was kind of curious, some of the history there. Appreciate it.
Alderman Weezy?
Thank you. As I was involved in the original efforts on the park, that very point was examined. Was it possible to, actually capture some of the methane and use it for power generation, for a small power, gen set of some form? And they did some studies on it back quite some time, and it was deemed that there was not enough methane, nor was it of a quality that was reusable in that vein. So the best avenue was to just vent it under normal circumstances.
The recommendation from staff is a motion to approve contract addendum number 1 on our contract that we have with GZA Geoenvironmental, and for the purposes of the installation, abandonment of vapor points and site maintenance on Bender Road in the amount of $21,300. Is there a motion to approve the contract addendum 1? Move by Alderman Weezy. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Doherty. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, the next item is discussion and possible action to replace fixtures for the Veterans Memorial at Maslowski Park.
Staying put.
All right.
Yes, these are the lighting for the monuments, if you will, that are in-ground lighting. And I believe there's at least 9 of them that are the rectangular. Staff has replaced, I think, 7 of those, or 5 or 7. I'm getting my numbers mixed up. We replaced them as we could under warranty. They're no longer under warranty. They're very high ticket items. Again, there's probably a lead time on these. We did get bids for them, and it was Hurd Electric that came in the lowest bid with those. So it's 2 of the electric, 2 of the rectangular, and then it's an extra one just to have on hand, again, because the lead time of these things is not long. And right now, currently, I believe that it's the Marine Memorial that's been out for, I think it's been a couple months for now. And I think the one is the other bigger monument. And then one of the uplighting for the US flag is out.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion then to approve the contract with Hurt Electric in the amount of $14,920 for the purposes of fixing the inoperable lighting fixtures at Veterans Memorial? Mr. Weezy, would you like?
Moved.
Thank you. Seconded, so moved by Alderman Weezy, seconded by Alderwoman Shaw. Any discussion? Alderman Gelhardt.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that these lights weren't that old. And I'm wondering, is this going to be something that the council is going to have to deal with every few years? Because they're still going to be at ground level. They're still going to be subject to moisture, et cetera. Is this going to be an ongoing expense for us?
I hope not. You're right. That is, I mean, what, 5 years, maybe the park has been open, I think. And I don't know how long this has been in ground, but it's hard to tell. I mean, I know the first ones there was an issue with, I think, the gasket on the lens itself, and that's why we were able to get those under warranted item. And again, now we're out of warranty, so I think that's why we got the replacement one. And unfortunately, I think if we did something different at this point, it's going to be mishmash. You're not going to have consistency out there if you would do. And we did look, and I think that question did come up about an alternative above ground lighting. There's going to be a bigger expense with that as well, because you're going to have to pull brand new wiring from the breaker box, which is in the building itself, all the way out to those. You can't just hook onto the existing lighting. So that's a possibility, but then it's a trip hazard. Is it vandal proof? I know there's that issue. There was quite a great deal of thought that went into what we're doing. And you're right, Alderman Gelhardt, I don't know. It is entirely possible, being in-ground lighting, that it could fail again.
Alderwoman Shaw.
Just out of curiosity, are these the same lights that keep going each time, or
No,
Different.
they're all different. So we're hoping, and if I would, I'd knock on it, but these are the last two that, I'll do it. These are the last two of the ones that have been replaced. So at that point, I guess, if it does come to that, then I think staff will be coming back to Alderman Gellhardt's point and say, look, we're gonna come up with a better plan. But at this point, we've got one extra in this proposal. We'll see if that works and go from there.
One follow.
Yep, Alderman Schmelzling.
What's the warranty on these?
Well, we're hoping it'll be at least 5. We'll make sure there's a warranty on that for sure, Alderman Schmelzing.
All right, thank you, and appreciate you doing the legwork to, look at the other option.
Yes, sir.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Seeing no one else wishing to discuss, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those no. Motion carries. And our last item of new business, review and approval of encroachment permit with We Energies for the City of Glendale Community Garden.
This has been an annual permit through We Energies. It's their land that the community garden sits upon, and it is now, and I thank it with the suggestion from Julie Simmons from We Energies to make it a 5-year contract. So instead of annual, it'll now be 5-year. So really, it's nothing different you haven't seen before, just a longer span of time.
That is nice.
So moved.
Second,
By Alderman Doherty, is there a second?
second.
Second by Alderwoman Shaw. Yes, well, we've had several years now of working with them, renewing it every year. And
I
guess
have had
they've
no
looked at it-
problems with the community garden. It's
Right.
been well kept. We've had no issues. I think it's well received. I think it's used. It's been expanded. And to your point, Mayor, there's been no issues.
And so now We Energies is willing to say, all right, we're okay with a 5-year agreement. So,
And just so we know, at any time they could come in if they had to do any work and pull it out. That is part of the agreement, but that's again, nothing new.
yep. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Yep, now we'll move on to commission, committee, board, and staff reports, and I will start with number 1. Number 2,
Nothing to report tonight.
number 3,
Nothing this evening.
number 4,
Nothing this evening.
number 5.
North Shore
Wait,
Library.
number 5.
Sorry. Sorry.
I can go last. It's okay.
No, go ahead, Steve.
We can trade districts. Let's say 4th of July, we have a meeting coming up on the 19th. We're struggling a bit to get a food vendor that will do both food and beer. So that if anyone knows any food vendors, please route them our way. And then I think the only other thing is, no, that's enough. So we did update the website to reflect the new time. So we are back at 10:30 to accommodate the police department schedules. So that's worked out best for shift changes. Want to have plenty of police on hand if needed, considering the some of the events that happen in other communities.
All right, thank you. Number 6.
Am I safe?
Yes.
The North Shore Library meets next week, Thursday. And we've been informed that they have hired a new library director. Her name is Rhonda Gold. And Music in the Glen has all 5 acts underwritten. So we'll be having 5 concerts. So stay tuned to a fun summer. What? No, that's next year. I keep trying to increase. What can I say?
Thank you. Next, Chief. Anything to report?
Yeah, we had 3 of our new officers started on April 1st. They're in our in-house training. I should be starting our FTO program soon, so hopefully they will be solo on the road in about 4 months. And if you saw it in the news over the weekend, we had a river rescue. Car drove into the Milwaukee River off of Hampton. It was actually the sheriff's location, but 3 of our officers did go in the river. They were able to pull a person out. They all 3 went to the hospital for hypothermia. 2 are back at work and 1's on light duty for the next couple of days. So everyone's doing good and they did a very outstanding job.
Madam Clerk, you did a fantastic job with the elections. Nothing but positive things from residents. So your staff did a great job. Thank you. City Attorney?
Thank you. Just had a quick update on the Hubbard Street property that we were looking into. I've been speaking with Mr. Richard Trimborn and his brother who own the property, and they just, they've had a a tenant there for a while, a good tenant, and they wanted to work out some logistical issues to give the tenant an adequate amount of time to find somewhere else to be and go, and some other logistical issues. So I'm going to be talking with him this Wednesday. I've got a conference call with him, follow up this Wednesday to learn some more, and I think we'll be able to move on that relatively quickly. There's also, I wanted to give a brief update on the property over on Navajo. I've been talking with the attorney for the mortgage holder, and they sent somebody back out there to take, they had initially sent a contractor out to button up the place and enclose the areas that were exposed. And then because we had a concern from a neighbor about it, the fence, so they sent a contractor back out there to take care of the fence and kind of button up the fence as well. There's a hearing coming up next week in the foreclosure action, which I hope is going to lead to a resolution on this globally, and we'll be moving into a better place where we can, the permits are hopefully going to get pulled. So the last one I wanted to mention, there is also the pending lawsuit relating to the open records request complaint that was made. I recently filed a motion for summary judgment in that case. It was actually completed it a while ago, but when we met with the judge, we had a status conference, and both sides indicated they were going to file cross motions for summary judgment. And the judge said, well, we'll just brief them at the same time, or we'll do the briefing simultaneously, and we'll have the same hearing date. So I didn't want to file mine first to have it hanging out there for 3 or 4 weeks for the other side to read it before they got mine before he had to file his. So we filed it on Friday, and there hopefully we'll get a hearing date soon. So those are kind of the active, what's going on right now.
All right, thank you. City Administrator.
Yes, I wanted to provide you with an update. Negotiations with your first choice as the next Glendale City Administrator have concluded. They are within the parameters that you established at your closed session meeting this past Saturday. Consequently, a special meeting will be scheduled for Monday, April 18th, a week from tonight at 5 o'clock, to appoint the next city administrator as well as approve the employment agreement.
Thank you very much. So yeah, the closed session on our agenda this evening will not be necessary then?
No.
Okay. I just have 2 items. This afternoon was the ICC meeting. Oh, sorry, did you have anything else? Okay. So I had 2 items. This afternoon was the ICC meeting, and there was an update on Milwaukee County's housing situation, and particularly homelessness. Milwaukee County actually ranked #1 in the nation for the least number of people on the streets during the winter months per capita. So I think the census count was about 17 people on the streets. Everybody else was housed somewhere. As we know, the Motel 6 in the city of Glendale was utilized as one of 7 hotels. I did raise the issues today in the ICC meeting, and was followed by several other mayors who had similar complaints. And so any program like that, while it was very successful and it did get people off the streets, they need to talk to the suburban communities. And particularly in a situation like our community where we have our own Convention and Visitors Bureau, they need to find a way, if they're going to take away hotel room tax that funds a CVB, to make those communities whole. I did have an assurance from the director that was running the program that Glendale's Welcome to Glendale would be made whole. As of right now, there has been no progress on that. Hopefully it will happen before we get to the end of the year, and Welcome to Glendale is short somewhere around $17,000 or $18,000, because that's what the Motel 6 would have brought in those 3 months. So so that was it, but I do have the report if anybody wants to read it. Obviously, it is wonderful that, you know, we as a community saw a 92% reduction in an unsheltered population during the winter months. So the other thing is, I just wanted to alert everybody that Employ Milwaukee does offer an earn and learn program for summer youth employment. It's for ages 14 to 24. And I do have the information here if you know of people that would be a great fit for this. You apply for the job, basically to get our young people opportunities to work in the summertime. There's lots of different places to work. They were talking today that, you know, it isn't just food service jobs, right? There's all kinds of things, you know, working in law firms, and I'm trying to remember everything she said, but there are a ton of different opportunities. So yes, ma'am. Microphone.
Jada, my daughter, participated in Earn to Learn since she was in high school. And she may be doing it again this year, but it's a great way to learn a bunch of different things like they've been placed in lawyers, civic engagement, ACLU. We will be pulling some people for our Turner Hall. So there's a bunch of different places on anything. And I really encourage youth to do this because if they don't, they're going to keep cutting and cutting this program. So.
Thank you. So that concludes my report. I guess no fire department meeting this month. So that was canceled for tomorrow morning. There wasn't enough things on the agenda, so we'll meet again in May. The Plan Commission did not meet on the first Tuesday. Plan Commission is meeting tomorrow night. And then I guess Welcome to Glendale is holding its annual meeting on Thursday, in which Welcome to Glendale's membership, the 100 or so businesses will actually be electing their own board of directors. So when we meet on the 25th, all you're going to be doing is appointing me as the city's representative on that board. We're no longer appointing their board for them. They actually have their own membership built up, and this week they'll be having their first annual meeting and electing their own board. So before we adjourn, this is the last meeting for the alderman from the 4th District. Appointed in 2007 to fill the remainder of a term and then elected 7 times. So I'd like to recognize Alderman Weezy for his 15 years of service. We will have a resolution for him at our next meeting. So we invited him back, even though he won't be on the council at our next meeting. We invite him back to have a resolution to recognize.
After
him,
all
but,
those meetings, you can't go cold turkey.
Well, no, I'm still gonna be on, I've been appointed to CDA, but I'm gonna, trust me, I'll be around.
So congratulations for
Thank
15
you.
years. And I don't think we could have anybody else other than you make the motion to adjourn. Would you be willing to do that?
No.
Opposite as ever.
You bet. So moved.
Okay, move to adjourn by Alderman Weezy. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by everybody, apparently. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Wait for Megan to stop the recording.
So the